Today, I want to give a shout out to Oakland Podcast Studio. I am in the Bay Area and we started following each other on Instagram. I believe it was Louisa, and they have been so incredibly supportive of me as a Bay Area content creator just in the last month, just really supporting me. And I'm so glad that I came down here, and like I was telling my sound engineer here, I'm a big girl now. I'm in a big girl podcast studio. So hopefully I've got some big girl lessons and just stories and things that you guys will find helpful. So if you are new to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. Adventures in Adversity, after thinking about it, here we are, let's see, 19 months later? Crazy. We're coming up on 2 years in January, and it's a very, the podcast has really taught me a lot just about myself and how to move through the world. And for those of you who have not listened, Adventures in Adversity, my goal with this is really to provide a platform for people to tell real stories, real people, and just talk about how they have gotten through adversity in their life. So we all have it. I think to different degrees and different times in life, life gets hard. No matter where you are in the world, no matter how much money you have, what your race, religion, how you identify, all of that. I think the one guarantee is that there will be ups and downs in life. I just hope that anyone who comes across this podcast takes something from it. Because I know when I was struggling about 2 years ago, Cass really kind of got me out of my own dark hole when I could just walk around and listen to them, even if that was the only time I got out of the house. So I hope that when you're done listening to this episode or you're browsing any other ones, that you walk away with like a feeling that you're not the only one who goes through hard times. All right, enough of that. This episode is really important to me, and I'm really glad that I'm able to record it here as my journey is evolving. And I realized it's September. And I always tried to align the podcast if there are different months, like May is Mental Health Awareness Month. September, again, this is not an easy topic to talk about, but it's necessary. September is Suicide Prevention Month. And again, I think when people hear that word or read that word or someone kind of brings it up, you can see people are kind of like, suicide, like, I don't know if I want to talk about that. I know it's a light topic to talk about, but that's what this podcast is about, is talking about the things that are hard that a lot of us don't want to talk about. So I just wanted to start out with a few statistics about suicide, and hopefully to maybe the only thing you walk away with is an awareness. I'm hoping that if somebody is listening to this and they're having those suicidal thoughts, that they walk away with not only awareness, but I don't even know this girl on this podcast in this purple outfit, but I'm not alone, because she's talking about it and she has friends that have gone through it. And I'll get to it in a few minutes. I have actually had those thoughts. So I'm going to start out with some statistics, and hopefully this will just kind of open our eyes to the reality of why we have a month dedicated to this, because it's a huge problem. So this is from the World Health Organization, WHO.int.com. Key facts: more than 720,000 people die to suicide every year. That one person is too many. I was not aware that 720,000 people take their own life every year. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Oof, that makes me a little emotional. Sorry, I didn't think I would get emotional during statistics, but woo, okay, buckle up. Here we go. Okay, I have a story behind this, so just give me a second. 73% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries. So obviously suicide affects everybody, but specifically people who don't have resources to get help, like, breaks my heart, because I've had resources. And so we just got to draw attention to that as well. The reasons for suicide are multifaceted. Social, cultural, biological, psychological, environmental factors come into play. And I think all of us know someone or know someone who knows someone who's been affected by suicide. If you do not, I'm glad that you don't know anyone that's been affected by it. But the reality is that when you have these kind of statistics, I think I would be doing a disservice as somebody who has a podcast that talks about mental health and going through hard times if I didn't devote an episode to this. So for me personally, I've known a few people in my life who have unfortunately lost their lives to suicide. The first time I came across somebody who had felt that there was no other option and actually took their own life, I was in college, and I went to Harvard, where there's, I think, a lot of academic pressure. I was 18 years old, and I didn't have that pressure from my family, but you can feel it there. And I remember there was a girl, and I hope her family is okay with me remembering her. And she went to Harvard. She was in my class. And I remember seeing her on Mass Avenue. And she was actually she was from Luxembourg, very fashionable, like international, dressed to the nines, beautiful. And Marion Hershey Smith. I remember that. And this was in 2003, my senior year. And I remember I had seen her at a cafe. It was called Nomen Copy. Like, I saw her making copies once. I was like, oh, there's that popular Marion girl who's in all the international clubs. And I remember my roommate telling me that she went to class one day, went to her Italian class. And again, like, beautiful, popular, smart, just one of those people when you kind of walk by, you're like, she has an energy. And she had gone to her class, and I don't know what was going on in her life, but she came back and ended her life in her dorm room my senior year. And I just remember when I found out that who that was, I was like, wait, what? And again, I want to, if her family ever hears this, sees this, any of her friends from Harvard, I just remember her light being like so beautiful. And I didn't know her. I just knew of her and saw her around. And that was the first time I thought, wow, you really don't know like what people are going through. So I just want to call attention to her family, her memory. I haven't talked about this really since it happened, but it was a formative experience for me as somebody who was, 3,000 miles from home, grew up kind of sheltered a little bit, and was like, okay, I was just at a loss for words. And so that was the first time I had realized, okay, there's things that people go through that they don't talk about, and people that look all put together and high achieving and travel and do all this. There's a fight in our minds sometimes, right? Of how to deal with things. So may she rest in peace, Marion. And I hope that just sharing that memory of you will just remind people that when you see the put together people, you don't really know what anyone is going through. So I want to pay a tribute to her for just being who she was. And I'm sorry that she couldn't decide to stay. So that was the first experience I had with suicide, and somebody that I didn't really know but knew of, and that was in a corner of my world. Another unfortunate experience with suicide, about a year and a half ago, my husband's uncle ended his life. And he was a guy, lit up every room. Like, kid you not, lit up every room, like very jovial, accomplished doctor, amazing guy. Loved when he would come into town, take us out in the city, take us out to dinner. Just like one of those guys with like rosy cheeks and laughing and like kind eyes. Told you this wasn't gonna be a light one, but again, amazing person. We had no idea that he was struggling with anything. Man, I didn't think I would. So, great man. But with both Marion and him, obviously I knew him a lot better. But again, just the perception of they're not struggling with anything. They look fine. They look happy. They don't look happy. They are happy. They admit happiness, right? So you just don't know. And I'm not bringing this up to, create like a panic of, oh gosh, am I being there for everyone? Do I really know? We all can only control what we do, but part of what we can control, I think, is when you get that first instinct to judge someone or be like, oh, what's their deal? Why are they this? Why are they that? And again, I'm working on this. We don't know what's going on below the surface. A young girl, an older man, suicide doesn't discriminate. And I wanted to just share that experience, because those were the two experiences and the two wonderful people that aren't here anymore that didn't feel like they had a way out for whatever reason. And so I hope that in sharing that experience and the memory of them is just, again, a way for me to remember and kind of cultivate more compassion for people. Okay, so with that said, I would like to take a second. I know we talked about some statistics in the beginning, and then I shared, two experiences that I've had with people who have unfortunately taken their own lives. And I just want to make sure, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but I think if you've been watching the podcast, I am not a therapist. I have been to therapy. I've had a couple different therapists on the podcast. I think therapy is a wonderful, life-saving, absolutely the best money you will ever spend in your life investment for yourself and then for every single person you come into contact with, right? But I do want to say I am not a therapist, and anything I say is my own experience based on my own education, research, my own experience as someone sitting in the therapy chair. Please browse through the episodes. There's a couple different therapists that you can listen to if you're looking for more of that clinical background on suicide, which is very important. So a few notes. When I was researching, I wanted to make sure other than my own personal experience, I wanted to come to this episode with a little bit of psychology as a foundation. So many psychologists, and I'll link to all the sources in the show notes of where I've gotten this information off of YouTube. When I say the word suicidal thoughts, there's a difference between active suicidal thoughts and passive suicidal thoughts. So let's talk about passive. For example, I have had these. If you're going through a hard time or your stress level goes up, your cortisol goes up, you're going through something difficult, passive thoughts might be something like, if you're standing on the curb. I remember I was in college and I was going through a hard situation, and I remember the bus to go up to the quad where I lived would come by, and I remember just being so depressed and being on the curb. And this is an example based on a clinician that I talked to. And if something that went through my mind, I remember I was like, if I just stepped out right now and the bus hit me, I wouldn't really, I kind of get a break from all this anxiety. Wouldn't have to deal with all this if I did that, if I just got hit. And then you kind of are like, oh, that was a weird thought, but yeah, I guess I'm pretty depressed. So that's passive thinking. I wonder if this happened, or, oh, what if someone just came and shot me right now? Those are just passive thoughts. Now, the difference is active suicidal thoughts are making a plan in your head. I am going to go purchase something. How many pills does it take? Stuff like that. And the reason I bring this up is it's important to know and not feel like you're going crazy if these thoughts pass through your mind. Whether you have passive or active suicidal thoughts, talk to someone, talk to a professional. There's so many resources out there. And if they are passing through your mind or you are making plans, ideation, planning, your first call needs to be to a professional. If you don't have the access or money and you live in the US, you can dial 988, Suicide Prevention Hotline, where you can talk to somebody confidentially. Active, passive, both indicate that you, like pretty much every other human, might be in need of some help, and that's okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about, because September is Suicide Awareness Month, and this podcast is all about telling stories and sharing stories. A lot of my guests, Jim Serrano on the last episode, he is an adoptee on episode 54. He talked very openly about having suicidal thoughts. On my last episode on menopause with Raquel, she founded menopals.com. She talked about having suicidal thoughts. I interviewed Jake and Joe Sharp a few episodes ago as well. Their brother, Sam, lost his life to suicide. This is something that is happening. It's coming up more and more frequently when I'm interviewing people. And I had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, it's September. I'm going into the studio. What am I going to record? And if you have faith out there, if you don't, that's okay too. If you have faith, I was sitting in my car this morning. I had a little bit of a rough morning, and I was like, it's time. It's time to talk about your story. I want to be really authentic in the way that I share this. So the first time I had suicidal thoughts, I was sitting in my dorm room at Harvard, and I had my sophomore year, and I've never shared this. gone through, unfortunately, I wasn't really conscious when I had sex for the first time. It's in and out of consciousness. But it was consensual. I just didn't really want it to happen that way. Like at a party, like with a chair up against the door. So with someone who was dating someone. So that was awful. So I felt pretty disgusting, anxious, depressed, embarrassed, shameful. And that I had never done that. I hadn't had sex before. So that just wasn't, to wait till you're 20 and have that happen. It was pretty awful. But so I just like drank myself for like a year in college and kept my grades going. Like, I don't know how, but I ended up quitting softball because I played softball at Harvard because I was just so mentally screwed up. And I just remember coming home one night and just looking at a bottle of Advil on my desk and like dumping it out, like little blue or Aleve, I don't know if it's Advil, and just looking at it and being like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, and I just looked at it and I was like kind of drunk too. And I was just like, no, we're not going to do that. You can't do that. Like, you can't do that to your friends and family, you know? And obviously I didn't, but that was a moment where I thought about it. So again, everyone thought I was like at Harvard killing it. And I was, but in my dorm room, I was falling apart. Therapy. I ended up getting on like an anti-anxiety medication and really struggled through my whole 20s until I met my husband, with just the repercussions of that experience. So it led to a lot of destructive behavior that I wish I could take back, but you know, that's okay. And the second time that I thought about it, and I am hoping it'll be the last now that I have the tools and faith and all of that, but was June 2023. And I actually prayed about this before I came here, about how much detail I should go into in this, because the person who I'm referring to in this situation is a malignant narcissist, and she is very, as she told me, she's not a dangerous person, she said, but she is. And how do I start this? Okay. I had gone to an event where she was. I had confronted her about her behavior and had a breakdown the next morning because this person is an abuser and abused me behind closed doors in suburbia. And I was the first one to call it out. And so when I called out her abuse, major repercussions came for me. Smear campaign in my community, lying to people, telling people I was having an affair with someone at work, all because her husband came to me and told me that he was being abused by her. And that she's a malignant narcissist, and so it's all kept behind closed doors. I blew the whistle on it and then hit a point where I just couldn't deal with like the backlash, because when you expose abuse, they come for you. Socially, there were like rumors being spread about me in my community where my kids go to school that I just couldn't take it. I remember I came home and the next morning I looked up the dosage for Advil. Like, how much would it take? Just how much would it take? And for about 10 seconds, again, I looked and then I thought. And then I thought, I can't do this. I have 2 kids. I have a husband. They love me. I don't love me, but they love me. And so that stopped me. But it scared me, because if you're somebody who has gone through narcissistic abuse, sometimes it's like a little bit too much to bear mentally. And so I told my husband that I didn't want to be here anymore. And then he told my family, and I got so mad at him. He told my family on my daughter's birthday. I was suicidal on my daughter's birthday because of the backlash of this narcissistic woman who leaves a trail of awful destruction wherever she goes. And I told my husband, I don't want to be here, but I'm not going to do it. But I just want you to know I don't want to be here. And he told my parents and my family came over, and we sat in the backyard and had a family meeting. And I yelled at him and was like, I can't believe you told them that. And I stormed upstairs and cried. And then I came back down and was like, thank you for telling them, because you did the right thing. And now I don't have to hide it, that I was struggling. And nobody was mad. Nobody locked me up and put me away. They just wanted to be there for me. And I looked around the room, and everyone, they were so heartbroken that I was thinking that. But the reality is that I was thinking that. So Harvard grad, got a job, money in the bank, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're hearing this, maybe you're thinking, I don't know what this chick's talking about. Like, I've never, like, she needs help. Fine. Maybe this isn't for you then. If you're nodding your head and going, holy shit, okay, I've thought that, or I'm with you. The biggest thing with suicide, the shame in saying that I need help, it's okay. It's okay to reach out. And actually, the relationships, the friends, do you know how close we've gotten because of that? Because I shared that with them. The closeness we have now, and the way that my friend prayed over me, the way that my friend was like, hey, Bree, we want you to stick around. So there was no condemnation, no judgment. And that's what a friend is. So if you're sitting here going, yeah, I'm having suicidal thoughts, I don't want to seem weak, or I don't want to burden somebody with this, like, woe is me. It's not a burden. When you will burden them is if you choose to not stay. That's when the burden will come, when you're not here. One of the psychologists I was listening to on YouTube, because again, I'm not a psychologist. I love psychology, and I've been in the therapy chair. She had said that, it might have these irrational thoughts, right? That I actually, just to add a little thing, I have rumination OCD, like where you're obsessive compulsive disorder, where some people it's like different in that OCD family. It could be germs, it could be checking, it could be having to touch things. I don't have that. My type of OCD is rumination, where you just think, and it almost is like a song stuck on loop. So I would get these OCD rumination thoughts that I'm this whole situation is too much. Like, I'm always talking about it. Like, I can't, my friends are probably sick of it. My husband's probably sick of it. Like, talking about this crazy narcissist, like, get over it, right? Get over it. With narcissistic abuse, you don't just get over it. It's a whole nervous system thing. But anyway, the OCD thoughts kind of convinced me that maybe my kids could have a better mom. Maybe, and you convince yourself that those thoughts are not rational. And so one of the therapists said that keep in mind, if you want to take your own life to be less of a burden, it will do the exact opposite. She was saying that suicide leaves a trail of, it's like a nuclear explosion that devastates the people, not just you, because you're obviously devastated already and don't feel that you have value. It devastates the very people that you're trying not to be a burden to. If you're gone, complete devastation. And I'm so glad I chose to stay. And I'm glad Jim chose to stay and Raquel chose to stay. And for all those people who didn't choose to stay, like if they had just known how like loved they are, and that any mistake you make, everything can be overcome, right? I had a lot of shame for like my first sexual experience. I had a lot of shame for getting tied up with this narcissistic woman that like devastated things. I had shame. And shame is defined as the fear of disconnection. So if you have shame, you're afraid of, you're not like being rejected by your community or your family. Taking your own life is like the ultimate disconnection. So I know I'm all over the place with this, but I just felt like it was time for me to be honest. I had referenced it like once or twice in a couple episodes that, I've had suicidal thoughts, but like for real, I have. And people are, I don't want to be presumptuous for those of you who've never met me before, but people who have met me, my friends, when I tell them that, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm all into inspirational quotes and I was an athlete and I'm positive and I have like uncaffeinated energy for days. Like I'm hyper person, always been that way. You don't know what people are going through. You just don't know. And anyone who speaks up about what they're going through, like I commend you, because it takes balls. Sorry, I just had to say balls. It takes a lot of courage to admit that you're human. And in a world of social media, I think it's getting so much better now though with podcasts and everything. And keep it real. Like we're not robots. We all go through shit. You know, I take Lexapro to help my anxiety with the help of a doctor. I go to therapy. I get my exercise. But I think the two most transformative things that have helped me with mental health, God, faith, and talking about it. So I hope that me talking about it and talking about these shameful or embarrassing, like, you know, experiences that aren't shameful, they're just what happened. I hope that maybe it encourages one person. That sounds so cliche, but like if one person or goes to therapy or just is affected by this, I hope that I know that it's the right thing to do. And I just want to remind people of resources in the show notes. 988 in the US, free, confidential, text or call 24/7 English and Spanish. Call a friend, call your family. If you don't have that, talk to a stranger in a coffee shop. There's a lot of really nice people at coffee shops who, when they see somebody crying, will actually come up. Or if you just be like, hey, I'm struggling, man. I don't have friends. I don't have money for therapy. Can you just talk to me? That's a start. Online forums, betterhelp.com, Talkspace, YouTube has free content. But again, I encourage you, go to therapy. It'll change your life and it'll help you get through those hard times. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you for listening to this. If you know anyone who's struggling, send them the podcast. Send them a link to one of the resources in the show notes. Text somebody. Ask them how they're doing if you haven't heard from somebody or you feel off. Sometimes I get a feeling where I'm like, I haven't heard from so-and-so and I feel a little funny. Like, I'm just going to text them. Hey, how you doing? Everything cool? Or, hey, want to grab a coffee? Maybe they are fine. Maybe they're not. You don't know. Like, I feel good right now, but this morning I was crying in my car. Okay, I had a little run-in with the narcissist this morning. I'm great now. Like if I had judged my life on how I felt 5 hours ago, probably wouldn't have had the energy to show up to this appointment at the podcast. So take it minute by minute, use your resources, and please don't have shame. Like if this podcast gives you anything, it's that you're not alone. Sometimes people have weird thoughts. Not everyone does, but a lot of people have suicidal thoughts, and there is help out there. So take care and be well. Yikes.